Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Belgian Football Podcast. This is our latest episode and our latest special, the long-awaited Challenger Pro League pre-season preview. A bumper episode indeed this is going to be. This is our opportunity to share with you everything you need to know and hopefully more about all 16 Challenger Pro League sides ahead of the new season, which is about to kick off imminently. And joining me to provide some context and insight into the Challenger Pro League is everybody's favourite Belgian, is Mr. Joris Beck.
Well, at least favorite Belgian on the podcast. I think that probably is correct. I'm not going to take anything more than that.
I wanted to give you, coming into this, I thought I'm going to give him a killer introduction to this because it is a special episode, so it demands a special introduction.
I had to water it down. I had to. It's in my blood.
You see what he's doing, listener? He's under-promising and over-delivering. That's what we're going to get here, yeah. So what we're going to do is, for those of you who've listened to our pre-season previews before, you'll know we like to dive in, have a look at the squads a little bit, the general situation over the summer with incomings and outgoings. We'll probably touch a little bit on what money's been spent, because in truth, very little money has been spent by the majority of sides, in some cases nothing. So they've been very economical as they have to, cutting their cloth accordingly. And we'll look at some of the context stuff off the pitch, because there have been some quite big things inside some of these clubs over the last few weeks, which will give you a good starting point ahead of the season kickoff. So I was thinking, Joris, we might do this in a random order. No alphabetical nonsense, nothing like that. We're just going to dive in and do this randomly. And when I say random, based on my random notes.
Are you ready for the comments we're going to get from people like, oh, but when is this section about this club coming or not?
Yeah, we're going to get lots of questions going. At what point in the episode is, we'll try and see what we can do time coding wise with this for you, just to give you a heads up. So if you're looking to listen to the section on a particular club, then hopefully you'll be able to do that without listening to this bumper episode. So let's dive in right off the top of the cliff. And start with Zulte Waregem, shall we, Joris? Because they changed their coach, one of a number of clubs who changed their T1 this summer. They are now led by Sven van den Broek, who, of course, left Liers. He wasn't there very long. He was only there around 6 months before Zulte swooped this summer and decided he was their man. They were looking at a lot of people, but ultimately plumped for Van den Broek, who I think has gone to Zulte because obviously it says a lot about his ambition. In terms of their transfers over the summer, they've brought in around 6, I think, and only one of those has had any fee. So right winger Jep Ehrenberg, they've paid around 300,000 for. So Zulte, who last season spent quite a lot of money keeping some of their big hitters around in the hope that they would have, an automatic promotion back to the Pro League. It didn't happen for them, as we know. And as part of that, they've basically released 12, some of whom we knew were going anyway. So they've lost the likes of Ortwin de Wolf, who we now know has gone to Mechelen. But there's other big hitters in there who are now no longer around. Zeno Gano. Gano's left, Alessandro Serrani, Ruud Vormer's gone, Borja Lopez, Robbie de Costier, and Stan Brams. Remember him, everybody? But there are 2 big hitters still there who you would imagine will play quite a big part in the upcoming season for them. Obviously, Jelle Vossen, proven goal scorer at this level and at Pro League level. He's hanging around, and they're going to be heavily reliant on him, aren't they, really, to try and fire them to promotion. So big pressure on Jelle to go and get probably something in the region of 20 goals on his own. And Christian Bruls is still there. Other than that, we don't really know what we're going to get, because last year, looking at their squad, they really should have done better than they did, and they tailed off. So is the new coach going to make a difference?
Yeah, he probably will have to. But yeah, he comes with a nice pedigree there in his short spell at Lierse. Did really well there. With the squad that he had at his disposal and the position they were in when he came. But can he also do it when fighting for a promotion spot, where the pressure is definitely on? yeah, difficult to tell. You can already see a bit in their transfer expenditures, and what transfer activities. Like, they really were hoping for it. They needed that promotion last year, only spending 300,000 this time. That shows well, what we feared would happen as well. Like, they are now definitely tight on money, and now this is the first season they can't really have a little bit of a parachute, even though that's not a parachute in comparison to other the leagues in other competitions. But nonetheless, they are losing some big salaries of the big wages, of course, in Galo and in Informer, for example, and of course, all the others combined as well will be a big sum, and on their own potentially as well. Still, they have Vosse, who also is definitely not playing on a low salary. Christian Bruls as well. I'm sure. Yeah, he will be happy to to finish his contract at Zulte Waregem if they don't push him out the door still. But what that says about what will happen on the pitch and what they can achieve on the pitch, I think you make a right assessment with, like, it will depend on what the manager can do with the material at his disposal. It's difficult to see. Like, Vosse is still good at times, but I'm not sure if you can completely rely on him on the whole season anymore as well. Of course, with all aging players, there's always the risk of another injury that might be popping up and the disrupt your squad for and if that happens at the wrong timing in the season, that could hurt them a lot. But there's also still, I mean, the core is probably still looking okay, but is it good enough to really fight for promotion is really the big unknown and a big question mark, and I'm not sure myself.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to assess because, as we were saying, they spent big last year in the hope of coming straight back up. It didn't happen, and that explains why they've only spent 300,000 on one player this summer. Sven van den Broek, obviously, as you were saying, a lot of pressure on him because things didn't work out with Vincent Everard. He didn't get the best out of that squad last season, particularly some of the big hitters who there was a lot of pressure on to do the heavy lifting for them. So although Jelle Vossen and Christian Bruls are still there, my worry for them is, if you say, Joris, if Jelle Vossen picks up an injury that he's out for a while, then where are the goals necessarily going to come from? But yeah, the core seems okay still, and I suppose the dynamic and the coaching change might be the thing that makes the difference for them this time.
Yeah, and of course they also still have the young Brazilian that had some good spell last season in Mateus Machado, but it's unclear. He's already out with a hip injury. That I don't see a status of like when he will be coming back, and the hip injury. Yeah, it seems like something that can be a bit unpredictable as well on when how long that will hold on, and also with the risk of returning too quickly. But I'm sure they will want him to show a bit more, and hopefully for them he can do that. But a lot of question marks there. A lot of players left, still, but nonetheless, still quite a few familiar faces from the Pro League still, times still as well there. But also, these names from the Pro League time, I'm not sure if they I think they're indeed at their level, maybe most of them, without going into detail there, but necessarily, but at their level in the Challenger Pro League. So, hopefully for them it's enough to bring them up, but. Yeah, I'm really a bit unconvinced at the moment.
Yeah, I think lots of people are because they spent, so much of last season being kind of unconvincing as well. Even when they were, at the top of the table, which they were for a while. I think internally, obviously, they will absolutely be aiming for one of those 2 automatic promotion spots. That's, will definitely be their target, and I think everyone would accept that's the case because although they still probably in budgetary terms have one of the 2 or 3 biggest budgets in the division, as as we were saying, they've not been spending it for the reasons that we've outlined. Another side that has been, you could argue, cutting back on spending coming into the new season is Beveren. There's been a lot of change there, hasn't there, Joris, off the pitch over the last few weeks, last couple of months, since the end of last season. They also have a new T1. We know now it's Marink Riedijk, who was, of course, at Anderlecht Futures, and he'd already taken the decision that he was definitely going to be leaving that post because he wanted to step out and become a T1 with a senior side. He wanted to leave the academy set up and strike out on his own, which coaches often want to do under those circumstances at a certain point. So he's come in and was a slight surprise to some people, particularly some sections of the Beveren fan base, who saw this as a signal of a change of direction, which I think there is. Beveren are definitely going on a youth development model now, which I think, to be fair to the club, is probably the right thing longer term for them. There's also been other changes. Former sporting director Tom van den Abel obviously stepped down. He didn't have a great time. Fans were very critical of him last season, and his role as sporting director has been taken by a very familiar face in Bob Peters. He's back in Belgium, and also CEO Antoine Gobin has stepped down as well. He's taken some time out and away from football for a while. Friend of the podcast, hello if you're listening, Antoine. Antoine has been replaced by his former chief operating officer, who he worked very closely with, actually. Bart Foubert is the new CEO. He's a young and up-and-coming CEO, if you like, knows the club, knows the town well, is probably quite a good appointment, I think, from an internal point of view as well. So there's some big structural changes there, moving to a youth development model, as I was saying, and scaling back in some of the spending. Some of the fans are still unconvinced about this longer term, but we don't know how this is going to pan out. The opening weeks of the season will tell us much. In terms of their squad, they've brought in six. Couple of interesting ones. Sieben de Waal from Oostende, defensive midfielder. Lots of clubs obviously have been picking up players from Oostende, with contracts disappearing with their bankruptcy. And also Ademola Ole Adebomi as well, coming in just a few days ago from Crystal Palace, who is a striker. He's come in on loan. He's obviously a direct replacement for Godin Koliapu, who left just a few days before as well. So a bit of pressure on him to produce the goods. Outgoings, there have been 8, including some well-known faces in there. Taufik Ismail, Kylian Hazard has gone. He was in on loan, obviously. Didn't feature at all, actually, as we know. David Harankia, Brian Concalves, and I already mentioned Godin Koliapu's gone as well. So they've lost quite a number of players, and some players who were decent, I think we can probably say, for them, and players who, in leaving, are worrying the fan base a little bit. They don't know what their side is going to produce for them this season. What do you expect from Beveren?
Similar to Zultuarium, actually. I'm curious about the striking position. They have 3 strikers, but none of them is older than 20. Yeah, so they're all unproven at this level. I would say, if one of them explodes, which is very much possible, then maybe they might have a really good season. But if none of it happens, all of them fail to impress. Not only to impress, I think we really need to see goals from them, coming from them. They might have a tougher season more in the middle of the pack. And that does seem indeed like a change of the course. Of course, one of not all of those strikers are also purchases from them, so not all of them are bought. So that does hint a little more on short-term success in a way as well, but still unproven at senior level. So that's definitely, or at least relatively unproven, to see. Apart from that, the squad seems quite all right. They lack also, they also are a bit lacking in wingers. They have two left wingers in Anthony Limbombe, who also is a bit injury prone, and Mathis Serves. But on the right wing, they don't really have anyone outspoken well, outspoken is not the right word, but a real right winger. So they still have some work to do, I think, before the end of the window in the attacking positions. And yeah, apart from that, the squad does seem like, at least in quantity, it's stacked, and actually in quality, I would also say like it should be good enough to, for the level that they're aiming for. So like fighting for promotion. But yeah, still also there. We'll probably mention that a lot with a lot of teams, with quite a few question marks in the goal scoring department.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment on a lot of sides, and there's a lot of unknowns, much like you were saying with Zulte Waregem in relation to Beveren, that we don't know the answer to yet. And I think it's one of those situations, isn't it, where if things click early for them, then they could have, a pretty positive season to a large extent. I think the fans desperately, because they've been frustrated for a while for a number of reasons, are desperately hoping that they have a positive start to give them some hope that they've got a season ahead where they'll be in the mix at the very least, to use a phrase. I know from some of our engagement with Beveren fans that they feel a little bit pessimistic about, where this season might go for them. I think some of those appointments off the pitch are not bad appointments, if from my perspective, to be honest. It's obviously just whether they work out, and only time's going to tell whether that's the case. It's a readjustment period for them, as it is for a number of clubs. I think the previous 2 years, where they've not been spending massively, but they have been spending a little bit for this level, that's obviously kind of slowed down now. They've taken a deliberate decision to do that for reasons that in a way are kind of understandable, but they're not the only club that are in that sort of situation. Moving on to a club who possibly overachieved a little bit last season, RFC Liège, a club who, again, probably a lot of unknowns about. They have the same T1. There's been no change there. Gaetan Engelbert is still in post. He's been at the club for a long time now. A bit of a legend at the club. Came reasonably close to leaving over the summer. St Truden were interested in him. There was some discussions, but it didn't go anywhere in the end. He is staying in Liège, and in terms of on the pitch, they've only brought in 3, including Theo Piero, who lots of people will know. He's come in on a free from Lommel, so you would imagine he could become quite important for them. And I think they've lost around 5, although Reno Wilmots, they did bag 75,000, something in the region of that. He's gone to Patro. So a small fee has come in, but they're an example of another club, many in this division, who haven't spent anything this summer at all. The interesting thing about them, for those who've been keeping a close eye on this will know that they have new American owners. There's a new American consortium who've been in charge now for a few months, who've injected a little bit of money to the club, obviously, which is positive. So from a financial point of view, they certainly are more stable, even though they're not spending money. It'll be very interesting, I think, won't it, Joris, to see if they can perform as well as they did last season, because towards the end of the regular season, approaching the playoffs, they were charging towards the playoff, and it looked up until quite late on like they might squeak in there, but it didn't quite happen for them in the end.
Yeah, one name here that I want to mention just because of nostalgia, and maybe older listeners might know this name as well, or should know the name, I guess. Is they also have an 18-year-old goalkeeper named Joshua Mpenza, and yes, that's a family. Like he's the son of Mbo Mpenza, so a nephew as well from Emile Mpenza, who's probably the more famous one abroad as well. The former Kortrijk and Standaard and among others strikers, or in the case of Emile Mpenza, at least striker, and Bo was more. Also striking, but more on the wing, I guess, coming from the wing. Nonetheless, that was sidetracking a bit. Apart from that, quite a few old hits there as well. Benjamin Lambeau, 37 now. Pierre-Yves Ngawa still playing, 32. Okay, that's not so special, I guess. in goal, Kevin Debatty, also 35 years old. So yeah, almost twice the age of his third goalkeeper actually. Then, which also is not uncommon, I think, but nonetheless, yeah, and a few more players ticking on the 30, like Piero, Jonathan Dostillo, the captain, and yeah, also a few more like Lumba 34, Cascio also 30. So yeah, their average age is around 27 years old, the whole squad, which, I mean, it's average, but okay, you also have to consider that there's a few youngsters like the young Mpenza who are probably not going to feature that much, that take down that average. Unknown quantity to me, honestly, to be honest. But yeah, let's see. Also, like these old heads, can they still perform? There was always with Vosse and others at Zultuarium. Yeah, is this the season too many or not? One and two, or yeah, are they going to pick up some injuries? Yeah, hopefully not, of course. But you never know. Oh yeah, Stefano Marzo also came from Dender, 33-year-old. There we go again. So yeah, but okay. On the other hand, they have a lot of experience. So experience combined with youth, it is a success formula at sometimes. But is the quality good enough? Not really, I think. I think they will be happy with a mid-table finish if I would have to predict them at the moment. But yeah, they can surprise me, of course.
Yeah, I think ultimately if they stay in this division, they'll be very happy. And if they can do the same thing as last season and finish in that top half, just outside playoff positions, then they'll have considered it another really good season. Time will tell. Speaking of time telling, let's move on to RWD Molenbeek, who, of course, were one of the relegated sides. They dropped out of the Pro League at the end of last season. And right towards the very end of last season, of course, when they were chopping and changing T1s in the hope of desperately keeping their place, they finally landed on Yannick Ferreira, who signed a short-term contract. He was not able to keep them up, but over the summer they've sat down together and he's signed on for longer. He's staying on after the relegation, which I think is probably a reasonably good decision on their part. I think I think he had a good understanding and he spoke very eloquently publicly about a lot of the issues internally at the club that led to the free fall and what he needed to do to kind of address them. So I think that's one of the reasons why they've wanted him to stay on. He seems to understand the situation quite well. Again, not spent a lot of money. They've brought in, I think, around 8 or 9. I think only one of them they've actually spent any money really on. That's Yakuba Bari, around 450,000. I think they paid for him. A lot of players have left, around 26. Some of them reasonably big hitters, well-known names. Michael Byron just very recently, obviously going to Leuven, which, as we know, is probably going to be quite a shrewd pickup for them. But they've also lost Theo Deforney. Xavier Messi has now retired. Farewell, sweet prince. You will be missed. Beautiful footballer. Career done. Well remembered around these parts. But they've also lost Jonathan Eris. And Big Makdar Gay is one of the big ones that they've lost just in the last few days as well. He completed his move to Blackburn Rovers in England and in fact actually scored last night for Blackburn. So he's hitting the ground early for them. But yeah, a lot of players have left. Not too much is known about the ones that have come in. And I think the priority is really just to kind of get a good team spirit and to start the season positively, probably, Joris, isn't it? To kind of put a dead end to that free fall that they were in for such a long time towards the tail end of last season.
If you talk about a complete overhaul of a squad, yeah, this is one, yeah, maybe a good decision to indeed keep the manager in that case, to at least have an oversight of what who he wants. I hope for him at least that he had some say in that. Yeah, many of them, notably, of course, the transfer of last season, actually, from Nuama to Lyon. Of course, you can't go past Molenbeek without mentioning that one. Yeah, at least mentioning it. One of the biggest transfers in Belgium, of course. What is it? Around 30 million now officialized by Lyon, but yeah, of course, there are some more things going on there, which shows still a bit the state of the what the state of the club. Indeed, losing their strikers in Gay and Biron, so that are big question marks. Yeah, and among others, of course. So like it's really can't really say anything. I think about this about them at the moment because there's just so many players that have gone and there's so little stability. But sometimes it magically clicks like that. I'm sure their fans will be hoping for that, but I don't see it happening. Again, I'm a bit skeptical, as I am with a lot of clubs, I suppose. But yeah, just there's a lot of things going on and a bit too many things, I suppose.
You're right. There's always plenty of drama where Molenbeek are concerned, particularly off the pitch, because of their controversial owner John Textor, who has his own multi-club network. You know, you mentioned that slightly infamous transfer over the last few weeks, which we now know was a transfer. Going to Lyon for that huge fee was always the intention. Molenbeek were never going to see the benefit of that, and John Textor working within the rules such as they are to benefit the largest club in his multi-club network. Lots of people saw that one coming. In fact, that particular transfer got referenced a couple of times. Our recent Ostend special episode, where we had some great guests from inside Ostend joining us, that particular transfer was referenced as an example of slightly shady behaviour by club owners in relation to our conversation on that on multi-club ownership. But those who've listened to that will know exactly what we're referring to there. But yeah, I mean, they'll be hoping, the fans certainly will be hoping that things can settle down inside the club and that they can have certainly a better season than the one they did last year and aim for at least challenging for direct promotion. Let's have a look at a side who you will know quite a lot about, and I'm going to ask you some questions about right now, and also the side that have, interestingly for those listening, the youngest average squad in the division, with an average age of just over 17 years. Young Genk. Again, they've changed. Another club who've changed their T1. The T1 is now the legendary and very well known Genk favourite Thomas Buffel. A player I also know from his time in Scotland as well. He spent some time at Rangers. He's very well known around the Scottish football scene, even recently. He tended to visit Scotland quite a lot to see Rangers games. He's now in charge of Young Genk, and the youngest squad in the division, which is a very positive and exciting thing, particularly for an academy side. That bodes very well from a Genk perspective, longer term. Who do you think, Joris? Who are the names in that squad who you expect to light things up this season and are worthy of a particular highlight here?
Yeah, there are a few also indeed. Youngest squad. Okay, that's not necessarily a surprise that it's one of the young, the under 23 squads that takes that title. But it's even with a margin of a year, I believe, a full year with the next one. So that is a lot. I personally feel it's a bit like a too young Genk, but we'll see. I also thought that already last season as well, of course. And some of the players that were might stay that moved on to those first team squads. Not all of them. Carretzes I'm not expecting to see anymore, but a few players that are already training, at least with the senior squads, like Klaas and Mangel. Probably will be playing most of their games, at least still with Young Genk. And from the new crop, let's put it that way, there are a few names to mention, although I don't really like to hype up players that are even underage specifically even, but nonetheless, I fear I might have to break my own rule a little bit for the sake of the podcast. But there's Kenan Haroun, also family member of the Faris Haroun, of course, who long ago also made his debut for Genk in the senior squad long ago, of course. But he's still very young and raw, but he's supposed to be a really good talent. Up front, there is Saïdou Touré, who will at the moment have to shine because they actually don't have any other strikers. I think they're still a bit on the lookout for some external reinforcement there since Ben Yangba left, and he provided the goods last season quite often. Jelle Driesen is also a name to mention as well. One of the, much like Caretsas, came back from after going to the Anderlecht Youth Academy last winter. I don't see, from what I hear, I personally haven't seen him, but from what I hear, we shouldn't expect the same impact and everything, and even level of Caretsas. Is also a slightly different position and not different player style, but we will see. With such players, it can always go really quickly once they get some experience in professional football, of course, in senior football. I don't know if he's gonna play much, but goalkeeper Kjaba Brugmans is also highly regarded, like many young goalkeepers, I think. We will talk, at least I will touch on one of them that left the club over the course of this summer as well, later on at another club. But they also got 25-year-old Olivier Vliegen as like this dispensation player for the season in goal. So presumably, he will get a fair chance in goal there. But there was a lot of shuffling with goalkeepers this season. Also, it's also one of the worries, of course. Penders really moving to the senior squad, already making minutes and on the verge. Still have to say on the verge. It still isn't official, but of a very big transfer move already. So that's from the own youth players. I think I would indeed mention Driesen, Ivy Place, Kiaba, Brugmans, and Haroun and Touré front, who only last winter, I believe, has transformed from a winger to an attacker, as happens often with youth players still, of course, in shuffling a bit of positions, and has done really well. But can he also do it? He already made his debut at the end of last season as well, but can he also perform and do it on this level immediately? Big question mark. And there's then one also, like a Croatian new talent from Dinamo Zagreb that joined, Lukanic on central midfield. That could be a good one as well, but it's again, very difficult to judge. On the position, so of course Kenan Haroun is also central midfielder. Kjaba Brugmans a goalkeeper, as I mentioned. Jelle Driesen is more of an offensive midfielder. So just also to cover these positions that I mentioned, from the names I mentioned. Also with Buffel, I hear good things so far from in preseason, but also there, same as for the young players, I guess. Like, can he also show it and see and perform if there's a bit more pressure on him, which there definitely will be at some point in the season.
Yeah, it's such an interesting appointment, that one, I think, completely understandable from the club's point of view, and probably a good one. But yeah, there's definitely pressure there. Where do you think this side can finish?
I will be happy if they do not relegate. I think that's probably the main objective all the time. And the second objective, I personally don't care too much, as long as that first objective is reached, but is often also stated like to be the best young squad in the league to be ahead of Anderlecht and Club Brugge in this case, as we lost one squad, of course, last season as well, of the younger squads. But I personally do not really care too much about that. It's more about the player development. For me, that would be good if they can stay in the league. And indeed, if some players really show that they are up to this level already and are ready for a step up. Like last season is actually a perfect example of how things went. In the end, it even went to a mid-table finish. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen every year.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And that academy side that we lost at the end of last season, that was relegated from the Challenger Pro League, as we know, was SL16, Standard Liège's academy. Speaking of being relegated, let's move on to a side who were relegated from the Challenger Pro League, but were reinstated after Oostend's bankruptcy, and that is Serang. They have not changed their T1, but brought their T1 back back, if you like. After Sarang were relegated at the end of last season, Mbale left the club, and after the club were reinstated, it took them an opportunity to sit down together and ask him to come back and stay, and that's what's happened. Mbale's come back in after the club were reinstated, after we lost Oostende. If you want to find out more about the Oostende situation, by the way, again, go back and listen to the recent special on Oostende, because it talks a lot about the context around that. So Sarang are back through the misfortunes of Oostende and have another shot at it. They are another club who have spent nothing at all. They've brought in around 6, all of them on a free. Again, a lot of outgoings, around 19, so they're clearing the decks a little bit. And again, this is another club, I think, Joris, that we could probably file under a big unknown.
Also one there where there's still some work needed just by the squad size. They only have 17 players and no striker at the moment, I believe. So like the opening game, I think it is, or one of the opening games on Fridays between Young Genk. And so yeah, we both not really have an out-and-out striker at the moment that is fit, at least. So yeah, a 0-0 is already written over on that one. But okay, that's it. We're talking about the whole season here, of course, and not just about the first game. But yeah, they only have 17 players. That's worrying. Definitely among the incomings. Yeah. There's some of most of them are coming from their own youth academy. So that's also youngsters filling up the squad. Most famous, notorious name is probably Niels Gouterde, coming from Lierse. Experienced head, 35. We know they like an experienced head in their squad now. Now Lepoint is retired, so officially lots of work to do. Lost a lot of players. Didn't bring that many in. Probably not that much of a budget to bring others in as well, based on what they've brought in and how they've brought it in. Yet another squad where, I hope this is a good listen like this, because it's just really difficult to judge them at the moment. Only thing we can hope is that they bring in a lot of players at the moment, and some quality players at that for a little money. So big ask.
Yeah, it is a big ask, and I think the worry is the one you've highlighted. It's there's a lack of quality even for this level, and a lack of depth, and you worry about it being a very long, difficult season for them if they can't address that. And we know that the owners they are looking to sell as well if they can. The fact that they've been reinstated at this level hasn't changed that at all. So that's another thing overhanging the club. So they very clearly don't want to spend, for that reason more than anything else. Another club who are never less than entertaining both on and off the park in different ways is Patro Eisden. They have retained the same T1 that they've had for a number of years now. Steinen is staying there. He is part of the entertainment. Hopefully he won't punch his brother this season, who's part of his coaching staff, having a family disagreement. This is another club of which is currently up for sale. There are very strong rumours of a sale. The club themselves have released a statement to say this is not true, but there's quite a lot of evidence out there that tells us that it is true. There have been a football consultancy firm has been employed to scout the market out and to talk to some potential interested parties. So they are one of a number of clubs that are looking to sell. Of course, they're owned by the Common Group, which is led in terms of the football operations by Coley Parry, who recently took over Vitesse in the Eredivisie just very recently under very difficult circumstances. So you would imagine with the club being unofficially up for sale that the taps might be turned off to some extent there. So again, we really don't know what we're going to see from them this season. Last season, they didn't do too badly. They kind of fell at the playoff hurdle, had a very disappointing playoffs, and were really well beaten early on in that. On the pitch, they've brought in quite a lot, around 16. They've spent around 175,000, two players in particular. Reno Wilmots has come in for about 75,000, and they've spent about 100,000 on Vicky Kian Kaulu. Again, a bit of an unknown quantity. I think I've probably butchered the pronunciation of that, but we'll move on quickly. from that. Equally, they've lost a lot as well. They've lost 15, so there's been a big turnover there. But they did sell Anus Haj Musa to Feyenoord. This is one of the big Challenger Pro League sales of the summer. He's gone to Feyenoord and has pocketed them in the region of $3.5 million. So that's a very, very good piece of business for a club at this level. But yeah, big question marks around how the kind of turmoil around the common group and the Colipari situation and some of the entertainment you get inside Patro is going to play out for them on the pitch this season. Joris, what do you think we might see?
Yeah, I think the main question marks here are off the pitch. On the pitch, difficult to judge. There is some quality in there in that squad for sure. There is some turmoil with some of the key players as well, of course. Steve Peters notably. So the relationships there are not in the best state. So if I would even play even this season yet, I'm not sure. Based on his salary, I think they have to almost, but there are more other factors to playing a role there. It's an okay balanced squad, I guess. There is some quality in there, so they could, if they can keep all of the outside external factors off the pitch, then maybe there is on that sense a chance of to this time indeed fight for promotion again. But I think there will be more external issues. Stan is also always going for the entertainment and not always the good kind of entertainment. So that already brings in a little bit of attention on everything what's happening on the pitch as well. And off the pitch, mainly like, will the club still exist come the end of the season is just yet another question, and I'm not one I'm convinced to say yes at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is certain is there's probably going to be plenty of drama connected to that club. That's the one thing we can guarantee right now. Predicting how the season might pan out for them in terms of the football is actually very difficult. But yeah, at least they will entertain us along the way, even if, as Joris says, sometimes that entertainment is not the sort of entertainment you want to see. Let's move on to the first of the newly promoted sides that have come up from the First National, Ral La Louvière. Quite a lot to say about Ral, actually. I think, they again are another club who've kept their T1. Frédéric Taquin, who's been there for quite a while, Joris, actually. He's been there since 2017, so there's a good degree of stability there. He's very well known. They trust him. He's earned his shot at this level, I think. They have a very good infrastructure at Ral. Obviously, the new stadium is ongoing. That's going to happen. Looking nice small all-seater stadium. They've also got some good training facilities that they invested in 18 months or so ago now. So, there's some very good infrastructure things in place to make them a stable club that has the infrastructure that, you would look and need to have longer term for a whole host of reasons, not just licensing reasons. Couple of points of interest. Over the summer, they appointed a certain Enzo Schifo as their head of talent development. Now, of course, Enzo Schifo is from La Louvière. His Italian parents were based there when he was growing up. Ral was the first club that he played for as well, so a big connection there between the two. And I think that's a really, in lots of ways, kind of quite a smart appointment. A club that obviously, like many in this division, are going to focus on youth development as much as possible. But a lot of positives going on for them off the park. They've also got a very well-known technical director as well at Ral, and Nikolaos Frutos, who many people will know as well from his own playing career in Belgium. So a lot of positives at Ral. We don't know what we're going to see from them this season, but in terms of their transfer business over the summer, again, a lot have come in all on a free, so they haven't spent anything, which is probably just as well, because they are investing, as I was saying, in the new stadium. So that's where the money they are spending is going at the moment. Around 15 coming in, 13 going out. I mentioned Vicky Kankunlua, who's gone to Patro, who has brought in 100,000 to them, which again, for a club at this level, doesn't sound like a lot, but that's not a bad transfer fee at this level for clubs, particularly when a lot of clubs aren't doing a lot of business in terms of fees. What do you expect to see from Ral?
A difficult season, just already based on they let go their top scorer. I believe at least his top scorer, their top scorer, Jon van Kamp, who scored 21 goals last season, but chose to stay in the division below. Yeah, okay. I can speculate on why he would be staying there. That I'll not, but I'll decide not to. But that's definitely a loss for them. Whether we also would have been able to perform on this level is already another question. But yeah, he really had. This would be a good chance for him to try, but he chose not to. At least I assume it was his decision. I'm quite convinced they would want him to stay. Okay, of course, we don't know all his wage demands and everything. Maybe they were impossible for La Louvière at the moment. Yeah, and brought in a lot of players, so they definitely knew they needed to do some things. They also, in the outgoing section, also lost Mike van Hamel as well, of course, who was playing there last season, an old name, at least a name we know. And apart from that, a lot of unknown quantity. Brought in a lot of players from inside and outside of Belgium. Wait and see, but tough season just based on losing their top scorer upon promotion already, is what I predict.
Yeah, I think like a number of clubs, I think if they can stay in the division, they will see that as a successful season. That's for sure. Anything above that is definitely a plus for them. It'll be interesting because I think they are, as I was saying, laying down the foundations to be for the future, and to hopefully remain a stable club at this level and build from there. Speaking of newly promoted sides, the other newly promoted side to the Challenger Pro League who came up last season with Ral were Lokeren. Yeah, so there was, for those of you who don't know, there was conversation a while ago about whether the Temps was going to be dropped. We now know that it is. Which is just as well because I think everyone was calling them Lokeren anyway, including us for the most part. So that's actually very helpful. But yeah, so Lokeren cruised last season with Ral, actually charged to promotion. And for a club, Lokeren, of course, we know that they went bankrupt way back in 2020, which wasn't too long ago, and have really been on a pretty upward trajectory ever since that point. They're now back at this level, at the Challenger Pro League level, pretty quickly. Well-known name in Belgian football as well. We won't go over their history with you here because that's not the place to do that. We may do a special episode on Lokeren at some point. But yeah, really interesting to see them back, to see what they can do at this level, particularly if they can maintain the momentum that they had last season. A lot of potential there. They've brought in, I think, around 11, all of them on a free. They've been working the market really carefully. They're the one club who've benefited arguably the most, Joris, from Oostend's demise. A number of players at Oostend have come into Lokeren on frees, including right back. A lot of these players will be quite well known, obviously. Right back Jonas Vink, left back Cedric Van Daal, goalkeeper Brent Gabriel, and probably the most well known one from Oostend to come in, attacking midfielder Indy Boonen. So some pretty decent pickups for them there. They've lost 10. 10 have gone out, all on a free. So again, another club who've effectively spent nothing really over the summer. And yeah, although there's an element of the unknown to this, I think because of the way they were promoted, and because of some of the players they've brought in, maybe a slight air of positivity around what might be possible for them this season.
Also, one correction there, of course, Indy Boden is not straight away coming from Ostend. He left the transfer them already in 2023 on a free transfer and had a short spell in Greece, I believe, but to then be without club again and be a nice pickup for this level, you would assume. Whether that's really going to be the case, we will have to see. He never really has been able to show the promise he was in the youth categories. Arguably, his last chance at this kind of level, I would also think. But like you mentioned, indeed, they took away a lot of players of Ostende there. Not that Ostende had the best of seasons, even on the pitch, but okay, it were difficult circumstances to work in and to play in as well, of course, last season for Ostende. Yeah, they might be looking up on the up. You would think their squad should be strong enough to avoid relegation. Much more, I'm not sure. I think also they would probably, at least for this first season, be happy with just a mid-table finish, whether that's higher up or lower up in the mid-table. It's a big question. Also, squad size could still be a bit bigger. There's 21 players there, considering there's a few goalkeepers in there as well. Yeah, only 2, so okay, not the bare minimum actually, but they might want to strengthen their squads in certain positions still. Apart from that, they look quite okay equipped. But yeah, left wing, for example, left attacking winger. Yeah, they do have also, well, both wingers actually. They do have a few wingers, but it's not that they're stacking them up either. Olivier Mini always should be a good pickup for this level as well. So definitely want to look forward to. But yeah, we will see. There's also quite a few players that are quite an unknown quantity for me at the moment as well, since they are, of course, just promoted and brought in and did an overhaul of their squad a bit as well, albeit more overseeable than in certain other cases.
Yeah, Lokeren are one of those clubs that I'm quite looking forward to seeing what they can do at this level, and to see if they can make a really good stab, the top half of the table somewhere. That's something I'm definitely looking out for in this season's Challenger Pro League. Continuing the sort of promotion theme, we were just talking there, Joris, about the 2 newly promoted sides to the Challenger Pro League. A side still in the Challenger Pro League who narrowly missed out in promotion to the Pro League last season is Lommel, of course. They got to the playoff final, lost out in the end to Freyr Alexandersson's Kortrijk. And Lommel are one of the very few sides to have spent some proper money, you might say, this summer, much like they did last season. Less than they did this time last year, but still for this level, they've spent a fair bit of money. Steve Bold is staying on as T1 after having generally a very positive year last year. As I was saying, they narrowly missed out in promotion, and we know really that the reason they missed out was they didn't quite make the best of their offensive opportunities throughout the season, not quite scoring enough goals. They've tried to address that this summer. One of the 14 incomings, striker Jason van Duiven, 19-year-old from PSV's academy. Now, they've spent around 3 million on him, which is a lot of money for a club of this level. Obviously, Lommel are loaned by City Football Group, so they have deeper pockets. But this is an interesting one because it's a bit like Jelle Vossen. A lot of pressure on Van Duiven to go and score a good number of goals this season and hopefully be the difference. He's the man they've chosen to do that. But they've also spent quite big on 17-year-old Faniel Taweld as well, who's come in from Odd in the Eliteserien in Norway, spending around 2.5 million on him as well. So Lommel have spent, just under kind of 6 million on some of the 14 players that they've brought in, which is a lot. So they are investing, heavily for this level. They've also brought in another one who I think is quite interesting. Being really keen to see how he does. They brought him in on a free, really. Mohamed Salah from Club Next. Although that's his nickname, of course. He's quite an exciting attacking midfielder who I think they're probably hoping can be an important link for Duiven there. So I think Lommel, much like last season, are kind of tooling up to have a really good go at this, and I think most people expect them to have a strong season again, and certainly challenge for automatic promotion. A lot of players equally have gone out, around 16, including a few surprises maybe. Arthur Salles, who did quite well for them, the striker, he's gone to South Africa in a deal worth a little bit over $3 million for them, which again is a big fee for a player at this level. And they also made around 400,000 on Christophe Kabongo, who's gone to Victoria Pleasant. What do you expect to see from Lommel this season, Joris? Dare I ask, promotion?
It is possible, I think, but we would have thought that every year as well. So I'm a bit skeptical to say that. I won't place a bet on it. Much like in the first division, I'd never want to place a bet on Union not having a good season anymore. With Lommel is a bit of the opposite. Last season actually turned out quite well. Van Duiven, which, I will correct your name on the spelling there immediately. So for the people who didn't understand, it's called before Van Duiven. Is of course a big factor. He is known in the youth at least as a real goal scorer. He also in the second division in the Netherlands ran a more or less 1-in-2 record. So that is really good. On the other hand, in the Eredivisie, so on the top level, he didn't score yet. Where he was loaned out to Almere, I believe. So whether that's maybe not a fair thing to say already yet, but that he has proven himself on the second tier level at least. So hopefully he can do that for them at least. They can do that. He can do that as well in this league. Karim Derman is still there. That's also a big factor. I feel like if he will stay, that can make a difference of a few positions for them. Even I would go as far as to say that, as he is quite crucial there on the midfield. And that they also brought in, like I mentioned, I would mention him at least, Matthias Pieklak from Young Genk, 17-year-old, who chose to most likely be second goalkeeper here, while ultimately he definitely would have been the first goalkeeper at Young Genk if he would have stayed. He chose to be most likely second goalkeeper at Lommel, but who knows? I'm not blaming him or anything. I'm just that's just most likely how it was planned. At least I know his trajectory at Genk was planned like that. That's also why there was a movement with the goalkeepers, additional goalkeeper movements at Young Genk, for sure. But talented goalkeeper also featured by the back end of this last season as well at Young Genk. We'll see if he can claim a position there. I know last season they actually rotated a little bit as well. Whispers are that there are some, and I'm sure Mike Green is going to comment on this, and going to deny this, but there are whispers that certain goalkeepers from the City Football Group had to play in certain games last season as well, which ultimately might have cost them some promotions there even. But ultimately, I mean, it's a well-equipped squad. Of course, actually, with their budget, they should be competing for promotion either way, to be honest. But I mean, last season they were really close. Maybe they can get it over the line this time. It's possible with this squad. Yeah, of course, also, so I mentioned Derman, of course, is Vangsa a bit higher on the pitch. If he would leave, that also would hamper that a little bit. If both of them stay, that increases their chances a lot of reaching that goal.
Yeah, definitely a club that have spent big for this level, and a club that have big expectations. And if they can go that one step further and offensively improve on last season, then I think they are definitely going to go very close. That's something I think most people agree on. Moving on to a club who, another one of the academy sides who will be aiming, I think, just to stay in this division, actually, much like Young Genk for player development, is Anderlecht's academy side, Anderlecht Futures, whose average age is 18.7. So this is the year's difference between the average age at Young Genk and Anderlecht Futures. They likewise, they've had a coaching change this summer. They've got a new T1. Jelle Cohen has come in, former T1 at Young Mechelen, and most recently young Genk. So he knows this level very well. He knows all of the players. He knows what's required to run an academy side as well. In terms of some of the players to watch there, I mean, I think it's worth mentioning Scottish striker Robbie Ure, who looked very good in periods last season for Anderlecht Futures. I think he scored something like 4 and 16 for them last season, so much so that they've extended his deal. He seems to be very comfortable at this level and could again be very important to them. Kaisuke Goto as well, Japanese striker, relatively new coming in there, being blooded long term, possibly for the senior Anderlecht side, depending on how his development goes. And another one probably worth a mention from my perspective is Tristan de Grief as well, the 19-year-old attacking midfielder. There's certainly some talent and potential there as well. Are there any names in that squad that you think might have a big season ahead of them, Joris?
I'm actually surprised that Nunzio Ngwanda didn't feature in the senior squad over the course of the last weeks, especially since the lack of central defenders they are having. But I think I even mentioned him in our Jupiler Pro League preview episode. So yeah, I assume he will still play most of his games at that level. Of course, alongside Lapage still, so the grandson of Van Himst. That's going to be interesting to see. They also brought in a random Danish player also for their
a Danish player, Anderlecht.
Yeah, a lone player in Munk, Magnus Munk or Monk. I don't know exactly how you pronounce it, but yeah, which seems very random, based on what he has achieved so far in his career. But maybe he develops well at Anderlecht as well, of course. And from Leipzig, they brought in Timo Schlick as well. That's as a goalkeeper. That's probably something they did need a little bit. Not that their goalkeepers were horrible, but yeah. And well, it will also definitely be interesting to see Nathan the Cat. Still only 15, I think, or maybe turned 16, but still very young anyway. Featured already as a 15-year-old last season, and actually immediately after the first game he was a bit shaky still, but apart from that, he looked really comfortable in that side already, which is impressive at that age, of course. And I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of him. Goto, I'm not sure. Not too convinced at the moment. His loan also ends in the middle of the season, in the end of December. That's what seems to happen a lot with Japanese loans. That's probably how the system works there. Yeah, could be a big loss. Not sure if it is really a big loss, but we'll see how it performs. In terms of losses, indeed, like Ngwanda's brother, Alonso, went to Utrecht on a free transfer, and albeit he's supposed to be the lesser one of the two brothers, and he's also the older one, so that's also why they did not extend his contract or did not try to extend. I'm not sure. That could be a big loss as well. He already featured at Utrecht in the Eredivisie opening last weekend as well. Played well. They kept a clean sheet, played quite well as far as I could gather. Utrecht fans are happy, so that's probably a sign that Anderlecht fans probably should not be too happy with that. Okay, early days, obviously, but only hearing good things from that at the moment. As a defensive midfielder or defender, that he would be playing. I'll quickly run over the rest of the squad if I see something that is noteworthy. Yeah, okay. Like with all young squads, it's always interesting to see who is going to be the next thing, big or small. I mean, just who is going to be the thing on the next one. Devon de Korte, also interesting, of course, with his American background. Just his life story is a little, interesting as well. But and if he can develop a bit further, he featured. They did. He also was running out of contract, but they did extend him in the end. Managed to do so. Apart from that, Antoine Colossin is still part of that squad. That's also noteworthy, but I'm not sure. Well, I don't think he will stay there. But at the moment of recording, he still is. And I think that he might be leaving. And like for all young squads, I think the same thing will go as what I said for Young Genk. I'm not going to repeat it, but if they can stay in, well, I will repeat it once, but in a shorter way, like stay in the league and, if possible, beat the other young sides as well as more of a prestige. I think that's the main objectives from them. And of course, with Jelle Koen, they got a manager that did really well with Young Genk last season and managed to turn around. So showed some flexibility in his approach. Whether that's necessarily the Anderlecht approach, that is to be seen. But I guess with young sides, it's always difficult anyway. So you might want to have that extra grit and bring that to his squad as well. And I think they had a good pickup with that, or made a good move on him actually with that. But whether that we'll see. And also, well, Lars Montagny, he featured at Kortrijk in the first team last season, at the beginning of last season, without a contract famously, so they picked him up. So far, it hasn't really come off. It didn't really shine, really be able to manage himself and at this level. Still only 18 years old, of course, but otherwise you can start asking the question, of course, did he make the right choice, and did they make the right move there as well? But especially his choice. But we'll see. Like I always say with young players, it can go really quickly as very, very soon and very fast. Same happened with Lapage. Actually, he was heavily criticized often because he was just only there for the heritage reasons. While in last season he has really progressed a lot and has shown that at least at this level he really can perform well. So maybe he progresses even more, and who knows? Yeah. Also, if not in Rwanda, I would have expected him to be maybe playing in a senior squad now, even if only for these few weeks where they are lacking central defenders.
Yeah, it's always very difficult to kind of predict how the academy sides are going to do, because as Joris was saying, that there's a number of factors that are kind of unique to them because they are academy sides themselves for a number of reasons. And moving on to a side who've had, I think in lots of ways, a very interesting summer is Denza. Obviously off the pitch, they're another club who are officially up for sale. The club have denied this, but plenty of evidence to the contrary to suggest that this is in fact true. The Singapore multi-club ownership model that owns them, ACA Partners, are certainly looking to cut some of their costs, and if possible, it appears that the Denza is a club that they're prepared to lose as part of that. But on the flip side, they've changed coach this summer. They have a new T1 and a very well-known T1 in Belgium. Hernan Losada is back, Joris. Listeners will know him already from his time in Belgium. Obviously, he's been away for a period in the MLS. He was at Montreal and DC United. He's now back in Belgium after spending a largely successful period at Beerschot between 2019 and 2021. A lot of experience at this level as well, because he led Beerschot to promotion back to the Pro League. And that Beerschot side, didn't they play some entertaining kamikaze football for a while? If that side scored 6, they might concede 4 or 5 in the same game, but it was never ever dull, and they were great to watch, that Beerschot side, both for positive and negative reasons at times. But yeah, he's a really interesting figure, Hernan Losada, and I'm really keen to see if lightning can strike twice for him. if he can really get Denza motoring and bring them up. This will be interesting, because he was actually quite heavily sought after this summer, wasn't he, Joris? I know that Zulte Waregem spoke to him, Liège Gers were keen as well, for very understandable reasons. But in the end, he's chosen the project at Denza for reasons that I can kind of understand in a way. They've not spent a lot. Again, another club that haven't been spending. Unsurprisingly, if the owners are kind of looking to sell, you wouldn't imagine they would do that. Although I'm sure the money they have spent has largely gone on Losada. They've brought in around 7. Most notable is probably the left winger Zakaria Falouch from Dijon. 125,000 they paid for him, very modest fee. The rest have come in frees. A lot have gone out, around 13. No fees have come in from them. Shout out to a certain player who is a big favourite, a huge favourite of our Ben's. He's going to miss him a lot, I think. Suleiman is gone. So Ben will not be able to get Suleiman to sign a Denza shirt for him when we visit. I know that's a source of great distress to him, but maybe we'll send him an email to Qatar where he's now going to go and play his football, and he can do that for us instead. But yeah, Ben would never forgive us if we didn't mention that Suleiman is no longer in Belgium. How do you feel about the Hernan Losada factor, Joris? Is it exciting you? And are you much like me wondering, can he do it again?
I'm mainly wondering why did he go there? But I guess
that's a perfectly good question.
But there's big chance we all know the answer as well. But yeah, will really actually get what he is promised? That's another topic. Both on the pitch and off the pitch, I suppose. Yet another club where that's a bit of an uncertain factor. I would say their main incoming is probably Tuur Dirks, most notable one, coming over on a free from Astromitos. Also, a youth player of Club Brugge, also featured in first division for quite some time. There's several clubs. Lastly at Westerlo before he went to Astromitos for last season. Also, Thibaut van Akker is, of course, an experienced head and known name in Belgian football in the first 2 divisions, for sure. Theo Quintero also left. That he was also important for them over the course of the past few seasons. Dylan de Belder also left. A number of players have left. Also, Marcelino Ferdinand. I think that was one of your left field picks, I guess. That always to mention. Yeah, he unfortunately is also clubless at the moment, so you could still sign him up for yourself if you organize to have a club yourself. Hernan Losada, I need like big name, probably biggest trainer name in the league, manager name in the league. So can he indeed make it happen with them? At least exciting football. If they really will fight for promotion, I doubt it, but maybe they also, we never know. Maybe if there is a takeover quickly, then maybe they will even bring in some players quickly as well, which can go both ways as well. So unfortunately, not a real big good prediction here. Too much nuance in here that's going on. But they have a good goalkeeper, a few good goalkeepers, arguably even. They have experience at this level. So I would see them higher up in the mid-table, I guess, at the moment. And who knows if everything falls right, they actually have a shot at promotion. Or will the kamikaze tactics bite them in the area that I can't mention here?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think that's been one of the most exciting pieces of news to come out of the Challenger Pro League over the summer, the return of Hernan Losada, and there were a number of clubs at this level who were keen to bring him in as well. So all eyes on whether lightning can kind of strike twice in Belgium for him. Moving on to a side who will be hoping very much that they have a much better season than they did last year is Lierse. They have a very young average age as well. The average age of their squad is 22. Again, a good thing. Generally a very well run club, it has to be said. They don't like to spend a lot of money quite deliberately, partially because they don't have it and partially because they're firmly rooted in the local community, and that's not the way for them. You know, long-term youth development and some smart pickups is definitely the model there. They are a club who changed their T1 over the summer. They've brought in Christophe Gregoire, plenty of experience at this level. most recently T2 with the Belgium under-21 squad as well. Wasn't there very long, just around 6 months before Liège came calling. But prior to that, he spent a very short period as T1 at Virton at this level as well. We know things didn't end well for them, but that was a very difficult situation that they were in. So he was only there for about 15 games, I think. Prior to that, he was T1 at Sarang. He was there for quite a bit longer. He was there for 3 years, a good number of games there. So very experienced at this level. They, like a lot of clubs, again, have essentially spent nothing. They've brought in around 14, some of whom are quite well-known faces, though, Joris, with good Pro League experience. The likes of Victor Boone from Union Saint-Gilloise, Pietro Pertechisi from Westerlo, Brent Lass, pickup from Ostend, Durkasare from Mechelen, and there's a good few wild cards in here. That's the interesting thing about Lierse's recruitment. They are scouting out for potentially an interesting pickup. Probably the most interesting one over the last week or so has been Che Krabendam, who they've picked up from the very lower leagues of English football, who has an interesting pedigree insofar as, Feyenoord Academy, some big academy names and experience earlier in his career. But if you look at his footballing CV, you'll see that he spent virtually his entire career around the lower leagues of English football. So that's one to see if this can become a true wild card. I think it's a 1-year deal that they've offered there. He came in on a trial and impressed them apparently, and they've decided to go with it for this season. So that's a really good example of how they might handle how they do handle their recruitment alongside some of those more well-known experienced heads. A lot have gone out as well, 14. No fees for them as well, so kind of clearing the decks, re-energising the squad a little bit to go again. They've been making some infrastructure improvements as well. They've been building a new stand, Joris, behind the opposite goal end, which has been looking very nice, I must say, because they do have quite a nice stadium at the Herman van der Poort, and we visited, of course, and very much enjoyed our visit. A club that have... I think it would be fair to say there is some potential at Lierse, isn't there, Joris?
I also feel like they might still, if everything goes wrong, they might have a very long and torrid season as well. A bit of the opposite of with Danze, I guess. They lost Stan van Dessel, infamously, I guess, one of my picks for being a revelation of the Jupiler Pro League a few years back. I think 3 years back, most likely, maybe even 2 only. He left on a free to MVV Maastricht in the second division, second tier in the Netherlands. They also lost Erik Okansi, of course. Niels Schouten, as already mentioned, and quite a few others. They did bring in Victor Bone now on a free transfer. They had already loaned him from Union before. And Jake Avendam, it's indeed an interesting one, like a Dutchman who spent most of his youth career in Anderlecht, and also the few spells that he had in his early career outside of England were in Belgium. But now at this level as well, coming from Kingstonian FC. Yeah, just an unsponsored shout out to a bunch of amateurs here, one of my favorite YouTube channels who are following lower league teams in the English footballing pyramid. A random shout out to them, because I'm not sure. Maybe he actually has featured in an episode where he was in an opponent of one of the sites that they were following. I think there's a few names in this list of clubs that do ring a bell because of that series. For sure. Like Horsham, I think actually that's the biggest chance that something happened there. Nonetheless, okay, also a random shout to Horsham here. There are a few question marks around that squad still as well, of course. Can Obiolare... is he still going to be there as well? Again, it's another question. Like, he could use some stability, but he also could use a season without injury worries, unfortunately. Yeah, and in general, I guess who is going to score the goals is also with them a bit the question. They have Nicolo Dailly, of course, now, also with huge links to Molenbeek, of course, as well. Because and former Molenbeek for sure as well. I think my main question marks are lying in up front indeed as well. Also now see that there's an interesting there, Thiago Vermeulen, 16-year-old. I'm not sure if you'll actually see him, the dual citizenship I mean here, which is Belgian. And then I thought at first the flag was Czech, but I have the impression it's actually most likely more something Asian, from an Asian country. Philippines, exactly, there it is. The name gave it away as well. Like it probably was not going to be Czech, but another random name to drop in here, Elias. I'm dropping a few random names, even though they haven't necessarily done completely random business. So I want to be fair to them as well. But just found a few personalities or names that look interesting, at least on non-footballing reasons, only partially footballing reasons. And they still have a really young squad, of course, indeed. I think you mentioned that as well. Which, yeah, I mean, could turn out really well. Could turn out, if they get in a difficult position, it might be tough to get out of it as well. But there are some more squads like that, forced like that or not as well.
Yeah, I think Lierse are definitely one of the more interesting unknowns coming into this season, particularly after the season they had last year. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. Moving on to another club, the last of the academy sides, Club Brugge's academy side, Club Next, who have an average age of 18.7. They have retained the same T1. Robin Veldman is still in post, who was not too long ago T1 at Anderlecht Futures before leaving there and spending a little bit of time in Scotland with Queen's Park, back in Belgium with Club Next now. Again, they've spent about 800,000 on one particular player, which is quite interesting. Chandra Campbell, the 18-year-old left winger who's come in from a South African club. That's quite notable for one of the academy sides to spend that amount of money at this level. Not something you see that often. The other notable incoming, who is a free from Oostende, that's a recurring theme for this episode, unfortunately, is Siba Weilen as well, a 21-year-old. That's an interesting one to keep an eye on. In terms of outgoings there, if you can call them that, not many, around 5. Worth mentioning, he's still in the squad and he's already made an appearance for the senior side in the Super Cup actually this season. Taibe as well, centre-back, young 21-year-old centre-back. You know, will he feature any more for the senior side at all this season, or will he be indeed a regular, which we suspect he probably will be for Club Next. But much like the other academy sides, Joris, it'll be about staying in this division and developing that squad. Just interesting to note that they have spent a little bit under a million on one particular player, which is a lot at this level, isn't it?
Ordóñez cost 4 million or something at the time, so it's also difficult to judge that. We know, of course, not only them, all the young sides, of course, have the backing also a little bit of their senior side for such transfers who are not always possible for others. But size 31, so I think there's a lot of outgoing business still to come for them. That's just way too much, especially for a development side. Because it's a development side, it's also very much possible that some of these players are actually going to feature more in their under 18s or something like that still, or under 16s even in some cases. There are some players like Lint Outdoor who also had some experience in first division already then at Kortrijk last season. Daniel Perez is still there, a favorite of yours. We'll have to see if he will stay there. That's one of the players I'm thinking. Actually, I thought he actually had announced a transfer already, but it looks like he's still there. But I assume he will still make a transfer most likely. He's not too happy with the situation, still being at Next and not at a senior squad anymore. On this younger squad, I actually have, unfortunately, a bit less to say. Yeah, I mean Taibe, of course. I know him a bit more, of course, since he came last season from Young Genk. He didn't do badly there. A lot of unknown factors. Probably, again, the same targets for them as for the other young squads. I mean, they have actually brought in quite a few players from abroad. Not only them, let's say that also goes for Young Genk and for the futures.
Yeah, so much unpredictability there. And we know it's worth pointing out and reminding people that with the academy sides in particular, because of the rules allowing players to be named in the senior squad as well, there is, as Joris was saying, that possibility that, you know, some of these players may disappear from Challenger Pro League squads for a time as well. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on in terms of the unpredictability of the squads, and it makes it difficult for coaches to plan and work under these circumstances. Moving on to penultimate side in the division for the preview, Frank Baran, who have a fairly young average age, 23. They haven't changed their T1. It's still Sebastien Grandjean, who's been there for a year or so. Again, another side who've effectively spent nothing, although quite a lot have come in. Possibly the most well-known one being Dorian Desailly from Antwerp, formerly of Charleroi as well. Very well-known face. He's come in. Equally, a lot have gone out there, around 15 as well. Probably the two most prominent losses for them are both retirees in Kevin van den Driesch, who many people will know as well, and a certain Clement Tainmont as well, both of whom big names, very well known. They have retired. Frank Baran, I think, much like the academy sides, because they're not spending, will, I suppose, be aiming to stay in the division.
They did bring in experience. You actually mentioned not one player that is probably the most notable, and the former champion of Belgium as well, in Sebastien de Waast. As well, falling out of favor, yep. And then we'll see how he will perform now after spending some time in Cyprus. But yeah, so there is a duo there in De Soleil and De Waast of experienced heads who most likely are going to start, contrary to the other young squad size that you mentioned, otherwise young squad side. Difficult to judge, indeed, a few big losses, or big name losses, bigger name losses in Clement Tainmont, for example, as well. But a lot of French influenced players as well. Also still interesting to see Matthew Healy there randomly. It's not the first season there already. The Irish-American player. And difficult. Again, with them in a bit uncertain about up front, not only up front, but more like all the attacking positions, if there is enough quality there and depth, because a lot of young players there. But okay, of course, one of them exploding could already be enough to have a regular decent season in mid-table, I guess. Yeah,
I think they're all fair points. Again, another hefty dose of the unknown with Frank Baran, and we'll see if those two very experienced heads that we've mentioned, the one I mentioned and the one that I left to you, is can make a difference beyond their own contribution. That leaves us with one final side, the 16th side, last but by no means least in this Challenger Pro League pre-season preview. It's Eupen, the other relegated side from the Pro League last year. They have a new T1. Finally, it felt like it was never coming, actually. They have appointed Mirsad Selimbegovic, 42-year-old Bosnian coach, former Hansa Rostock and Regensburg coach. An interesting appointment in a way, I think, Joris. I mean, not one that anyone expected. I think the German connection obviously makes complete sense with it being Eupen. They've gone down that road again this time. He'd been talking recently about not knowing too much about Belgian football and kind of looking forward to diving into that and learning more about the footballing culture here. I thought that was kind of quite interesting. They've brought in 4 players at the moment, all of them on a free. One of the interesting ones, presumably they see some talent there. David Wiedlars, 19-year-old right winger from Leverkusen's under-19s. That's a slightly interesting one, I think. 7 outgoings, some big hitters from their point of view. They've lost Victor Palsson. He's gone to Plymouth. Jason Davidson's gone, as has Isaac Christic Davies. And maybe the most prominent one, Slonina as well. Gabriel Slonina, the goalkeeper who was on loan from Chelsea, he's gone back to Chelsea. Where he'll be playing his football next season, we don't know. It probably won't be for the Chelsea senior side. One point of interest with them is they have made £300,000. They did sell left winger Davo, who's gone to Deportivo La Coruña. for that £300,000 fee, which is, again, for this level, that's a good fee. But yeah, another club who are, I suppose we could say, probably downsizing, Joris. So it's very difficult to predict where they're going to finish this coming season and how they're going to do, because we felt when they were relegated that it might be a very, very long time before we see Eupen back in the top division, if at all.
Yeah, and I still think they would indeed need something up front again, although they must have some confidence in David Witlars, of course, but just who's going to score the goals. Emo, of course, should do it at this level as well, but Finn Bogason is also still there. But all in all, I mean, their squad looks quite good, equipped for this league. So I could see them fighting for promotion, even if nothing changes anymore. So also Boris Lambert still being there. Of course, due to an injury, I think mainly. Otherwise, he probably would have moved on maybe in January last season already, or now in the summer, which still might happen, of course. And at the back, for first division, this is not enough. The Kral, Paashuizen, among others, they might actually want to strengthen it nonetheless, at least in quantity, a bit there. But with more in quality. One really good central defender could make a big difference there. But then again, it's difficult to judge these levels, of course. Maybe for second division, for second tier football, they are probably more more equipped and more capable of playing their game there as well. So if those players indeed are showing that they're good enough for this level, then I could see something there. A few question marks, of course, and a few big ones, but I wouldn't be surprised if they would fight for promotion at least.
That's a very interesting prediction. Possibly filed under gentle hot take, which is why we're here, of course. Well, there you have it, everyone. Everything you need to know and more about all 16 sides. Fantastic. You've got what you need to dive into the action, which begins this weekend. It may already have even begun, depending on when you listen to this preview, of course. Thank you for joining me, Joris, and providing all this context and insight. And hopefully we'll be able to take in some of the opening games this weekend. It's been a good one, this. And finally, it's kind of come around. It feels like ages because it starts 3 weeks after the Pro League. And then before you know it, it's right upon you. And of course, throughout the season, it's worth remembering that we will be dipping regularly into the Challenger Pro League to give you a little bit of a roundup each week with what's going on there as well, won't we, Joris?
Yep, we definitely will. Yeah, also, I guess we can also say apologies that it's dropping quite late. It wasn't so easy logistically for us to squeeze this one in. Also, as you can see, a bit in the absence of Ben here. We're happy to have at least recorded this one, and let's see how this season will go. Do you have two sides that are going to be relegated in your head in the prediction there, and maybe also who's going to promote straight away? Maybe not necessarily, it's difficult for the playoffs, but just for the two straight promoters.
Interesting. I mean, I think in terms of the promoters, I think Lommel are going to be there or thereabouts, and I think I'll stick my neck out and say Zulte Waregem this time. Although, having said that, since you've asked me, I do feel like Denza, purely because of the Hernan Losada factor, could be a bit of a dark horse here. Without him, I don't feel they're necessarily in the picture, but I think with a sprinkling of his magic, then things could potentially change there if it all clicks. So that's who I see being at the kind of top end of the table. What about you?
They will definitely play a role. A big enough role, I do not know. I guess I will actually continue with my so-called hot take there, I guess, with Eupen in there, and then I probably will go with one of the two that you took as well, which is going to be Lommel in this case as well. Yeah, and for down, it's never nice to predict that. So and also we will give them fuel for their season if they need it even. But I will say Serrain, it's looking dire still. Certainly, given they almost were relegated last season, and I'm saying a lot of Vieira are going down straight away again as well.
And I'll just throw in my tuppence worth on that particular issue. I think Serang are going to go down, and I think possibly Frank Baran. I'll put that out there right now. If you like what we're doing here at the BFP, and as we always say, why wouldn't you? Then please feel free to leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. You can also buy us a coffee, buy me a coffee, which goes some way to our production costs here at the Belgian Football Podcast. A couple of other things as well. Our Oostend special, which is still quite recent. Please do go and check that out if you haven't already, because it does have a bearing on a lot of what we've just discussed here as well. Some great guests contributed to that as well. And we're also running Fantasy Football Pro League again this season. So if you haven't already signed up and created a side, there is still time for you to do that. And we'll share all the information on how you can do that as well on our socials. That's just about it for this special. Enjoy the big kick-off of the Challenger Pro League this weekend. We'll be back with you very, very soon for another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.